Voice America. Your Voice America.
When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for
The
prejudice.
silent majority is silent no more.
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Your Voice America. Your Voice America.
Good evening, folks. This is Bill Mitchell with Your Voice America. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We have a great show tonight. I have Stephen Rogers. He is on the Trump Advisory Board for the whole 2020 campaign coming up. This guy really knows what's going on with this campaign. He knows the president personally and is looking forward to sharing with you what we need to do to win in 2020. That's coming up in just a minute. Wanted to mention to you really quickly some of our new sponsors. We have rdelephant.com. rdelephant.com, it's spelled just like it sounds, is a new social media website. It's kind of like Facebook and Twitter kind of put together. One of the nice things about there is you can actually do your podcast on there. You have a captive audience, a social media audience to stream and watch your podcast. It is actually created by veterans and is used to support veterans. It's a membership site. This helps to keep the trolls away. It's very inexpensive, but trolls are so cheap, they won't even spend $2.99 a month, which is what the website is, or $4.99 for a whole year to be a member of this site. What do you get for $4.99 a year? Unlimited access to the site. You can upload your podcast. You can interact with everybody. There's going to be no shadow banning, no censoring, no sheltering, no blocking, no liberal purity tests on there. It's just going to be a great experience for you. And a big portion of that money goes to support wounded warriors. So definitely check them out, rdelephant.com. Also, we have one of our great fans of the show, owns a company called Kalenda Designs, K as in kitchen, OLENDA Designs. Okay, you can find them at kalendadesigns.com, KOLENDA Designs.com. They're a graphic design firm that prides themselves on the motto fast, affordable, and collaborative. Kalenda Designs makes logos, flyers for events, and other graphics that need to be designed at a quick pace and a low rate. Definitely check out kalendadesigns.com. Big MAGA supporter. We got to support these other MAGA businesses. Okay, folks, great show coming up tonight. I'm going to be up here with Steve Rogers in just a minute. Stay tuned. Reach out to your friends. Share the show. Tell your friends. Going to be amazing tonight. See you in just a minute.
I am your voice.
Your Voice America. Your Voice America. America. Your Voice America.
Good evening, folks. This is Bill Mitchell with Your Voice America. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I have a special guest host with me tonight, Stephen Rogers. He is on the Presidential Advisory Board. I tell you what, he knows what's going on out there as far as the election coming up, as far as what's going on in the campaign right now, and is in touch with all the different hot issues, Iran and the Democrat debates and all these things that are coming up. So he's going to be a great guest for us tonight. Stephen Rogers, how are you?
Certainly a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Fantastic. We've seen, Steve, you've been all over the TV, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. We've been doing many hits, whether it be Fox, CNN, or whatever. We're getting around, and we're also touring the states. We've been down in Florida a few times, and we're shaking hands and just getting out there and meeting the people.
Fantastic. Well, I was just in Orlando for the Trump rally, and that was an amazing experience. I went down there, and I got there a little bit early. It was about 110 degrees outside, very humid. And I was standing out there with all the patriots. There were thousands of patriots, out on the lawn there. And I kind of walked through the crowd. It was just so nice to have people, recognize me. And they're like, "Oh, aren't you, Bill Mitchell? And can we have a picture with you?" And all that stuff. It just felt nice to be out there amongst the people. It was an amazing rally. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know what, Bill? What's amazing? You've got 25,000 plus people in the arena. You've got another maybe 50,000 outside. 48 to 72 hours before the arena opens, there's lines 2-3 miles long, and the mainstream media ignored it all. They just simply ignored it. And at the end of the day, as you say, They know there are Bill Mitchells out there. They know people like you are working very hard to get the president's agenda across to the people. And you know what? That equals one thing, a big win in 2020.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, this is what the social media is afraid of. And as a matter of fact, Project Veritas just busted Google and some of their top people in a new video that's out today. And Google is saying, you know, we are going to run these algorithms. We're not going to let happen what happened in 2016. You know, we don't want these guys to bust up Google with antitrust, because that means smaller companies need to prevent Trump from winning in 2020. I mean, to talk about collusion, this is a major corporation actually on tape saying we are going to collude with the DNC to prevent Donald Trump's reelection. I'm telling you what, I hope that AG Barr is watching that and saying, wait a minute, this is not good. Did you see that report on Google? It's unbelievable.
I did, Bill. And at the end of the day, that is enough evidence, at least in my view, to put an end to the monopoly that they now have. I mean, look, at the best evidence is a picture, correct, or a video.
Right.
It speaks more than 1,000 words. So out of their own mouths, out of their own admission, they're looking to do things that are at the least unethical, at the most illegal. And that'll be up for a jury to decide. And believe me, or a judge. And I'll tell you what, they're in deep, serious trouble, in my view.
Yeah. Well, we hope so. I know that, you know, here's the thing. I've never believed that prosecutions and that sort of thing win an election. I think great ideas win an election. You know, the prosecutions and stuff like that, they can help to take the other guys down a little bit, but you run a risk. If you go too hard against the other side, they can cause them to circle the wagons, you know, and create martyrs within their organization and give their people a reason to come out and vote. But if you have enough, it kind of discourages them a little bit, makes them feel, you know, out of their center. And then we go forward with the great ideas. And you and I were talking about before the show how, you know, you get these press releases and stuff like that. And when we, who are very involved in this, we read this stuff, it's like, we're like, oh, wow, this is such a big deal, you know, but the average person on the street doesn't care about that. They care about the dinner table issues, isn't that right?
You're absolutely right. And Bill, there is a fundamental difference between this campaign and the last campaign. What we have now is no longer a political war. We have an ideological war going on. It's for the heart, soul, and spirit of this country. And here's what it's all about. A vote for a Democrat is a vote for socialism, period. And people are quite upset over that, Bill. Even Democrat conservatives are now scratching their heads saying, wait a minute, maybe Donald Trump has something going here, and he's exposing where the Democrat Socialist Party want to take their children, let alone us, into the future.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, Donald Trump is very smartly, we talked about this on the show the last couple of years. Donald Trump very smartly put himself into a Reaganistic position of getting those Reagan Democrats. Because if Donald Trump was your standard ideological far-right conservative president, there would be a lot of Democrats who are born and raised Democrats, okay, who are more on the conservative side fiscally. You know, they're very liberal socially, but fiscally conservative. But they couldn't bring themselves to actually vote for an ideological conservative, ideological Republican. But because Donald Trump is taking the middle on so many positions and has really presented himself not as an ideologue, but more as a pragmatist, more of a resultist, then I think a lot of these Democrats that couldn't have brought themselves to vote for him before could vote for him. It's just a guy that gets things done. You know, it's not like, okay, I'm voting for a far-right guy. I'm just voting for a guy that gets things done. Isn't that right?
Well, that's absolutely right. And they're voting for a guy that wants to preserve this nation. You mentioned Ronald Reagan, Bill. Ronald Reagan, as you're well aware of, went after the communists. He went after them night and day, every speech, every place he went after the communists. And he made it very clear that at that point in time in history, a vote for a Democrat may have very well been a vote for the Communist Party. Well, today we have President Donald Trump doing the same thing with socialism. He's going after socialism. And this resonates with everyone, Republican, Democrat, Independent. No real, true-blooded American patriot wants to see this country become a socialist nation. So that is what's resonating with the American people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's just fascinating how he did it by taking the middle, you know, on positions like DACA and positions like gun stocks. A lot of people on the far right were freaking out when he came out in favor of these positions. And I said, guys, Guys, these positions he's taking on DACA and so on and so forth are safe positions. They're free plays because the Democrats, for one thing, are never going to go along with it because they can't give Donald Trump a win on this. So we can come out in the middle on this position, and he's going to force the Democrats left because being in the resistance, the Democrats have to disagree with whatever he does, no matter what it is. So they're not going to go right of him, so they have to go left of him. So they force him left. And now, as you recall, we used to say that Barack Obama's a socialist, and Barack Obama's apologists would say, no, he's not a socialist. He's not a socialist. And now that horse is out of the barn, and they're all bragging about being socialist. As far as I know, the only non-socialist in the whole Democrat debates is going to be Joe Biden. Isn't that right?
Well, that's absolutely right. And Biden has a serious problem where the Democrat socialists are trying to take him out now. They're so divided and they're so messed up in the ideology that as they're fighting each other and tearing their party apart, and by the way, attempting to tear America apart, President Trump is out there doing what? Brilliant management of the Iranian crisis, brilliant management of the economy, brilliant management of the border crisis. So as you said, he's not going or hasn't gone so far to the right that he's giving the left ammunition to open fire on all of us. He is going right down the middle in some cases, and it's been brilliant. And now he has them in a total state of chaos. They say that the White House is in chaos. Well, I've got news for you, Bill, that they are in chaos. The Democrat Socialist Party, they really have nowhere to go now.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Iran for a minute. You know, Donald Trump was going to launch a strike against Iran. I believe the leak was 3 targets. Who knows? Okay. A strike against Iran as retribution for the tankers, with the mines and shooting down our drone. And at the last minute, as the story goes, he decided not to do it because his general said that about 150 people would lose their lives. And then he just said, you know what, it's not worth 150 lives, an unmanned drone. Let's hold back. Let's pursue some of our other positions. And what he's done now is he's doubling down on his sanctions and going after the Iranian leaders with some of these sanctions. And I'm telling you what, people don't realize that if we had bombed a couple sites there in Iran, we would have broken a few of their toys. But with sanctions, we can burn down their whole house. And I think that is Donald Trump's greatest weapon right now, is not bombs and bullets and guns. His greatest weapon against Iran is the purse. What do you think?
Well, let's put a couple of things in perspective, and some of your viewers may not know, but I'm going to share this with them now.
Yeah.
When I was on Fox the other day, General Keane was on, and he had made it very clear that 2 events occurred overnight that changed the president's mind. Number 1, apparently there was a call from some Iranian leader that did admit that there was a rogue general who launched that missile. Now, saying that, President Trump gave the Iranian government a way out. Military 101, give your opposition, give your enemies somewhat of a safe-facing way out. So the Iranians took advantage of that, and apparently, according to General Keane, they admitted that, there was a general out there that should not have done what he did. That's number 1. Number 2, you're absolutely right, Bill. 150 people or more could have been killed as a result of the attack on our drone. And the president, he did what was absolutely expected of a president, to be prudent and to make sure, and remember this, Bill, that would have been initial strikes of 150. But what about after the strikes that would have been launched by Iran, perhaps against Saudi Arabia, perhaps against Israel? I mean, there could have been the conflagration of a major regional war. So the president of the United States prevented a major regional war. And, I'm sure you heard, as I did, emotional people are saying, make Iran into a parking lot, strike here, strike there. Well, you know what? An individual who is president of the United States has to weigh all options.
Right.
He weighed those options. And as you said, the sanctions are now tightening today, and something else happened. There is media reports now that we did launch a cyber attack on Iran. And boy, I'll tell you, we lit up we know where their missile sites are. We crippled them. We crippled a lot of their cyber hardware with regard to their economy. So you nailed it, Bill. We're doing more destruction to them through cyber attacks and through sanctions than any bomb can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Abraham Lincoln famously said that if I make my enemy my friend, do I not defeat my enemy? And I think that Donald Trump takes that same approach with our enemies or rivals around the world, because some countries are rivals and some countries are outright enemies. And Iran is an outright enemy, but I think that he said something that was very telling. He's like, we want to get Iran to come to the negotiating table, and we want to see if we can work with Iran to join the global community of peaceful nations. Because here's the thing, and we learned this lesson in Iraq. If you go in there and you defeat your enemy and you crush the neck of your enemy militarily, what happens is you create an insurgency that can be a real problem for you. Okay, so I think Donald Trump looks at it this way. Yes, we could crush Iran militarily in a very short amount of time, but we would create an insurgency and a lot of potential other problems in the Middle East. Would it not be better if we can exert our force upon these guys and show Iran through these economic sanctions that it is in their own best self-interest to work with us? Because this is how you get change with people, not by just scaring them and that sort of thing, but making them realize it is in their best self-interest to seek what is in your best self-interest. That's the great negotiator and Donald Trump. And I think that he's taking that approach, and he understands nobody's going to vote for me another 18 months. I've got time to work this position out slowly. I'm not in a hurry, as he said. He's going to take the slow, patient approach and see if he can get a negotiated deal with Iran to prevent them from getting nukes. I don't think Iran really wants nukes. I think that's a negotiating point, just like it is with North Korea, and to get them back into the global community, the economic community, where they can prosper as a nation. Am I completely off base here? Am I headed in the right direction?
No, you're in the right direction, and it is in their own self-interest, Bill, because, and I've said this over and over again, the Iranians really don't have to worry about the United States government. They have to worry about what's happening now internally. Their own citizens are taken to the streets. They're fed up with their way of governing. And when people start not seeing food on their table, and by the way, when their military starts seeing their families affected and their quality of life get degraded, there may be an uprising from within. So the Iranian government knows what happened in Iraq. They knows what happened to Gaddafi in Libya. Bill, we could go down the list and see where people have risen up and struck at their own government. We're not looking to make any type of regime change, but saying that through the way the president has strategically addressed this issue, don't be surprised if we see millions of Iranians begin to take to the streets in a very short period of time.
Yeah, no, wasn't Iran many decades ago, weren't they like the jewel of the Middle East? I mean, weren't they a prosperous country that was doing well, and then these ayatollahs and stuff came in and the whole thing fell apart. Right now they're looking at negative 6% GDP growth over there. The country is really struggling, and that to me is our greatest leverage. And Donald Trump, and I've said many times on the show, he's always doing one or two things. He's creating leverage or he's closing. And right now, I think with Iran, he's creating leverage. What do you think?
Well, he is, and you could be sure that they're looking at what is going on in Venezuela, what happened to Gaddafi, what happened to Saddam. I mean, they've got to be blind and not to realize that they're going down the same road, and they're going to have to wake up. So yes, he's creating leverage, and you notice something, Bill, that I think hasn't been talked about much, but I've noticed it. Not much noise coming out of Russia. Not much noise coming out of China.
I noticed that the other day. I tweeted about that the other day.
Yeah, I mean,
where
so
are the
you've
threats?
seen it. Yeah, so
I thought Iran was their big ally. Where are the threats from Russia and China? Nothing.
Nope. So maybe Putin realizes that this thing's going bad, and I'm not going to be part of this because he has his own economic problems to deal with. So I think it's very telling, and I'm sure the Iranian government's thinking, if Putin's quiet, and by the way, NATO, our allies, everybody seems to be coming together right now behind the president of the United States. No one wants to see a regional war. So you know what? Maybe Putin is going to play his cards right and just stay out of this.
Yeah, and I tell you where all this starts? This starts with the leverage that Donald Trump created with his trade tariffs and sticking with those tariffs in China against the advice of his own Senate, against the advice of a lot of people on both sides of the aisle saying it would be a disaster. And we've had these tariffs now, and with the new trade numbers are coming in, and import prices have not increased at all. China is having to absorb those tariff costs. China's production levels are down to 2002 levels. Our production levels are up. We are winning this trade war. I don't care what Mitch McConnell says. You can win a trade war. We're winning this trade war. And because of that, China wants to get along with the United States. China wants to get a deal with the United States. Russia wants to get deals with the United States because of the trade thing, because companies are announcing they're moving out of China. They're losing their manufacturing advantage. They don't want to ruffle Trump's feathers. And so they're probably, this is why I don't think they're coming out in defense of Iran and threatening, we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll send our fighters in, They're not doing that because they don't want to cause that problem in the United States. And one more point, as you recall, when Donald Trump was going to go after Syria, Russia threatened, oh, we'll unleash hell. We'll send our best rockets and our best planes against you. And Trump's like, really? Well, let's find out if you'll do that or not. And they didn't. They did nothing. And so I think that's why they're backing off now. What do you think?
And keep in mind that, at least in your lifetime and mine, every president and even Congress has tried to solve the border crisis. And look what President Trump does. He puts these tariffs on Mexico, the tail of woe out of Congress, the sky is falling, the world's going to come to an end. He managed through those tariffs to get Mexico to send 6,000 Mexican troops to their southern border to stop the flow of illegal immigrants from Guatemala and the other countries into their country. So he's done nothing but succeed, Bill, at every single step of the way. Yeah. And yet, the question I have for the American people is, can anyone point to me, and maybe you, what Congress has done for us lately? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. While President Trump is single-handedly governing this country.
Yeah, I tell you what, it would be easy to sit back in a linear fashion and say, oh, well, it was terrible that Trump lost the House. This is bad for us. I don't think so. Because look what, one of the greatest ways to expose Democrats is give them a little bit of power for a little while. And it reminds everybody who they really are. Because they always, the devil always overplays his hand. The Democrats get a little power, and they thought they won those midterms because people wanted socialism. No, they won those midterms because there were a bunch of never-Trumpers running in these districts, and the Trump base didn't get out and vote for them, and those never-Trumpers got knocked out. Well, we killed two birds with one stone. We got the Democrats in power where they're exposing themselves as a bunch of useless socialists, and also now we can run MAGA candidates against those freshman Democrats instead of having to primary all the Republican never-Trumpers in those areas, which would have been embarrassing and expensive for the RNC. Now we can go fresh-faced MAGA candidates against these Democrat freshmen who are maybe in a position where they actually have to support a socialist on the presidential ticket. So losing in 2018 might have been the greatest ploy in the history of politics to come back in 2020 and take back Congress with a MAGA coalition that we wouldn't have had if we had just kept the House in 2018. What do you think?
And Bill, keep in mind the silence of the Democrats when AOC and others came out and really went after Jewish Americans and Jews
right.
all over the country, including Israel. I mean, their silence. I mean, how are you silent when you have congressional candidates telling the world that, well, you know what, the Mexican border crisis is equal to that of the Holocaust, equal to that of concentration camps. Unbelievable. And I'll tell you what disturbs me. There should have been a hue and cry from both parties. There should have been a hue and cry from the Republican Party, Senate and congressional leaders, as well as the Democrat socialists. None. Silence. They should have went after her. But as you say, you know what? This is exposing what they really feel and what they really are. But who's out there? Who's out there but the President of the United States exposing them? So to me, it's very telling about their agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we said before, the horse is out of the barn on the socialists now. And, the most activist base of the Democrats, and we know from primaries, it's the most activist base gets involved in the primaries. Your average, rank and file voter doesn't really care that much about the primaries. They care about the general election. So it's the most activists that are out there in the primaries, and they're driving this process. And we're seeing criticism from major news outlets of Joe Biden. HuffPo just put out a piece saying basically Joe Biden is a racist idiot, from his background. It's like, really? Wow, the long knives are out for this guy. And we were wondering because right now Joe Biden, are there any other moderates running in the Democrat Party?
No, they're all basically socialists, and that's what they want. They want a socialist candidate to run, and they want to change the future of this country from capitalism to socialism.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Okay, let me ask you a question. Let's say, for instance, the DNC sticks with Joe Biden as their guy. I think Joe Biden is just a walking disaster. I hate to see him go, but I think the guy is the unforced error king of the universe. Okay, so anyway, I don't expect him to last. I hope he does. I don't expect him to last. But if he gets knocked out, that might open the door, and we're sort of in conspiracy theory territory here. But why not? We can talk about it. That opens the door for maybe a Hillary to step back in, or maybe even a Michelle to step in. And one of the things that makes me wonder about Michelle, because I know Rush Limbaugh was worried about a Michelle candidacy before, and I have been, is that she was always in the news, always in the media of this book tour, that comment. For the last 2 months, it has been radio silence on Michelle Obama. There has not been a peep about her. It's almost like they're hiding her, off stage so she can make the big entrance. So, do you think that's possible? That if Joe Biden doesn't last, we could get a Hillary swinging back in, or we could get a Michelle, or maybe somebody else that would take on the moderate mantle that, Nancy Pelosi realizes she cannot win this election with a socialist. It's going to be a massive blowout. So what do you think? What's going to happen there?
Well, and keep in mind, Bill, that Obama has not endorsed or even uttered the words Joe Biden. I mean, that's kind of revealing. Well, here's what I think. I think if Michelle Obama decided to run, or Hillary Clinton, they would have to pick a vice presidential candidate who's a socialist in order to fuse that party together. But saying that, at this point, right now, I could safely say, not because I work for the man's campaign, but I'm out there, I listen to what people are saying, no one is going to be able to beat Donald Trump. No one. Yeah. And the reason why is his performance. The economy is strong. Our military is strong. Foreign policy is strong. National security is strong. And Bill, as you and I talked off camera, what people are concerned are their quality of life, for goodness sakes.
Right.
They're concerned about the future of their children and their grandchildren. And President Trump has so far secured that. Does anybody want to give that away? I certainly don't. So if Michelle Obama decides to run, I think there'll be a big, big push from the socialists not to support her. Hillary Clinton runs, well, you know what? They're dead in the water. That's gonna destroy that party. So I don't think those two things will happen.
Yeah. Here's one thing that I've talked about on the show that could happen. And I'm not saying this will happen, but I'm saying this is what I'm not trying to tell people I'm psychic or I have a crystal ball. I guess pretty well a lot, but because I put myself in the shoes of those in power making decisions, I'm like, okay, if I was them, this is what I would do in this scenario. Okay. If the Democrats go ahead and pick a Biden or one of their moderate candidates and they crown them like they did with Hillary versus Biden in 2016, and they get the nomination, I think the Democrats, the socialist Democrats as you call them, or the Democratic Socialists as you call them, the AOCs, the Bernies, all this, they may look at this and say, wait a minute, Biden is, let's just say it's Biden. Biden is going to lose to Trump anyway. Okay, Biden's going to lose badly to Trump anyway. We're revolutionaries. We want to take over this party. AOC has come out many times saying that she does not respect Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't even respect Barack Obama. I mean, that's heresy to those guys. She's come right out and said that. So I would think there might be a possibility if these Democratic socialists see this weakness on the Biden side and they see, we're going to lose this race anyway. Why don't we run a third party candidate against these guys? That way we get on the stage in the general election, we raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's a possibility our socialist candidate could beat Biden in the general election. And then in 2022, we could say we are the new Democrat Party. In 2024, we are the new Democrat Party because the old Democrat Party lost the election with Joe Biden to Donald Trump, because they may be looking at it as, like you said, we can't beat Donald Trump anyway. We can't beat the results. We may as well take this opportunity to take out the establishment of Democrats. We may never have a better opportunity. I know that's really out there on the conspiracy side, but I see it as a possibility. And if I was the AOCs and if I was the Bernies, that's what I would do. What do you think?
Well, let me suggest to you that that's not way out there, because it's been done already in the Republican Party. We fought an establishment that did not want to give Donald Trump the support that he needed when he first announced. It was the establishment who fought the American people tooth and nail to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States. But we took over. The people took over. It's no longer the Republican Party of Lincoln or Reagan. It's the party of Donald J. Trump. Right. And I've got to tell you, Bill, wherever I go around this country, you kind of mentioned, support the GOP, get there and support them, and there's applause. But you mentioned President Donald Trump, and there's standing ovations, which tells me this: we have to get the Republican Party with one message and totally behind President Trump. What upsets me more, Bill, than anything else are rhinos. I mean, it really does. There are Republicans out there. It is maddening, because
the Amashes and all these guys, and all these guys, are ridiculous.
It is horrible, because he's doing so much good for this country, and we've got Republicans out there criticizing him when in effect he's doing a great job. So criticizing Trump is supporting the Democrats. So your idea is not too far-fetched, but we already took the Republican Party over. I'm so thankful the Republican National Committee has actually right now at this point backing the President of the United States, raising millions of dollars for him. Yeah. But now, Bill, we have to make sure that in every level of government, and I talked about this the other night in New Jersey, from school boards to the White House, We got to get conservative Republicans who are backing the president elected. It's a matter of survival for this country.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tell you, here's my dream scenario. Donald Trump wins re-election with more popular votes and more electoral votes than he won his original election. Okay, that's always a good sign. Number two, we take back the House with at least a 20-seat advantage. We got to win about 20 net seats to be even, about 20 seats beyond that. So we have a strong majority in the House. We get somebody who's a very pro-Trump, very pro-MAGA, a guy like a Jim Jordan or a Meadows to be the Speaker of the House, okay? So those are my favorites for that. And then we maybe extend our lead in the Senate. If we can do all those things, we can go into 2021 with a mandate where we can get infrastructure done. We can get health care fixed. We can finish building the wall. We can have a trade deal with China. We can have a trade deal with the EU. All these things. We can keep extending our self-reliance here in America. To me, I think the unmentioned Trump agenda is to make America, after 8 years of the Trump presidency, to make America so self-sufficient that yes, we will trade with the rest of the world. We will negotiate with the rest of the world because it's good for the world to do that, and we live on this planet. But America can stand on its own on oil, on gas, on steel, on manufacturing, on agriculture, that we don't need anybody else. That way, when we go out to deal with other people, it's not because we need them, but because we're calling shots and we want to work with them. We're doing it according to our terms. Because as you know, in any negotiation, whoever can walk away from the table, whoever can walk away from the deal has the advantage. What do you think?
Bill, that will happen only if every GOP organization, from municipal government levels to federal level, stand united and stand together. What I'm saying is Republicans have to put their petty differences away, and they have to come together as one big, huge party to contend with. That's now being done. I mean, look what you're doing. You're uniting people. Your program here builds up America. There are other programs I could tell you that regretfully, they're talking about the negative. They're talking about the tearing down of America. But if we stand united and we're strong and we come with strength and vigor and let this president lead and let him know we're standing shoulder to shoulder with him, your dream scenario will come true.
Absolutely. You know, people say that I'm optimistic, and I say, no, I'm realistic. It just seems like optimism to you. Because I see these things as actually happening. You know, pardon me. I don't say on Twitter, I don't say on this show what I think people want to hear. I tell people what I see. You know, I tell people what I see, and for the better or the worse, you know, if I end up being accurate, that's great. But I'm not trying to hone my message to be what people want to hear. I've just been very fortunate. A lot of it, most of it has turned out to be accurate. You know, I always tell people, if you want to get Donald Trump right, if you want to understand Donald Trump, okay, don't judge where he's going by what he's doing. Judge what he's doing by where he's going. Look at what his goals are, and then evaluate what he's doing right now in terms, okay, well, how does that set the stage to get to that goal? And all of a sudden, this thing that didn't make any sense to you before starts to make a little bit of sense, because, you know, he's not a linear thinker where every single action has to be an end unto itself. He's more of a guy that dumps the jigsaw on the table, and you got all the pieces there, okay? He knows he's got the box top. He knows how the finished picture looks, but you may not understand this piece and this piece and this piece, but trust me, in his mind, he knows when it comes time to close, he knows how those pieces fit together. He sets up all those micro leverages so they come together, and he has this acceleration curve right into the end where he, you know, looks like we're going to have a challenged Republican convention, and he wins big. It looks like 2 weeks before the election, he's going to lose big to Hillary, and he wins big. We see the same pattern over and over. You get this acceleration to close as he calls in all those leverages, and he makes all those pieces fit together that nobody understood before, but he knew in his mind how it would work together. You know him much better than I do. Would you say that's kind of how he thinks?
Well, Bill, let's talk about what you just said. What do we see? We see a Democrat Socialist Party that wants to take our First Amendment away. They want to take the Second Amendment away. Right. They want to take the right to life of young children, even after their birth, my goodness, away. Yeah. They want to strip our religious freedoms. I mean, they have challenged the Constitution of the United States every step of the way. That's what we're seeing on the Democrat Socialist Party side. Now let's talk about what we see on the Republican side and on the side that President Trump is leading. Securing and strengthening the First Amendment, strengthening the Second Amendment, making sure that the unborn are born, making sure that we have a country that will be ruled by the Constitution of the United States, and that we stay a capitalist nation, not a socialist nation. So when you see and I like the way you framed it, Bill. Let's look at what we see. You have to be a blind person not to see that the Democrat Socialist Party is taking this nation apart inch by inch. Now we also see a president of the United States and a Republican Party trying to tell the American people, look, this is not the time to waver. This is not the time to buckle your knees. This is the time to strengthen up, because what we do in 2020, Bill, will determine the future of our children and our grandchildren. That's how important this is.
Absolutely. I would actually, 2020 is so important. I would actually equate 2016 to like making it into the playoffs. And 2020 is really the Super Bowl, because, you know, Donald Trump took a ship that was headed the wrong direction. You know, you can't just turn a ship on a dime; it'll capsize. You just slowly turn that wheel and turn it and curve it around, and all of a sudden it's going kind of even, and then it turns back around. It's heading in the right direction, and now the United States is headed back in the right direction. We've actually got some momentum. So to me, Donald Trump's first term, as wildly successful as it's been, is really a setup for a second term to really take America to the next level, not just to make America great again, but maybe to achieve levels of greatness we've never had in this country before. What do you think?
Well, you're absolutely right, Bill. And, you know, I met with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West the other night and Brett Frizzell of Media Research Center. Yeah. And they said something very interesting, which probably will include you in this whole scenario, okay? We'll always be, and it's a good thing, because what people are asking, what our Republican base is asking, and what Democrat conservatives and American patriots are asking, what can I do? What can I do from my own home? What can I do? I'm working hard. I'm paying taxes. I'm raising my kids. What can I do? And they said something interesting. They said we can use social media, something we didn't have years ago. I would venture to say at this point, more people watch your broadcast, Bill, than they do CNN and MSNBC. I really mean that, because you're out there in the social media world reaching thousands upon thousands of Americans, and people are sharing that. You can't share what's already aired on these news medias, but we can share your message. And they need to share everything coming across on social media that is advancing the president's agenda. And so my point is this. After talking to them, I realized, you know what? This is what the American people could do. Get on your social media platform. Share all of this great achievements that the president has done. Share all the great things about this country that we want to hand to our children. That's what wins an election these days. Go out and share it. And I also say this, Bill, and it's not much said on TV, but we need to pray. I believe there's a God above. He's got the shadow of his wings over this country, and we need to focus in on sometimes the spiritual elements involved in this and pray to God that he gives us wisdom and direction. And that's how we're going to win this thing.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, you can see throughout. I think here's get a little Bill Mitchell's personal philosophy here. Okay. Some people see God as an architect, and some people see God as more of a farmer. Okay. An architect has a blueprint for your life, and everything's already laid out in advance. You know, it's just a matter of putting it together. Okay. A farmer is more someone who plants a seed and waters it, but then the seed grows as the seed will grow. Okay. I see God as more of a farmer because he gives us free will. Okay, you can't have a perfect blueprint if you have free will. They're contrary to each other. So I think that God plants us and waters us, and that means that he pretty much stays out of the affairs of mankind, except there are certain key points, certain key inflection points where I see the hand of providence, you know, come in, you know, like the signing of the Declaration of Independence and beating Great Britain. Great Britain was the most powerful empire in the world. We beat them with boys and grandfathers, basically in the trees with slingshots. It's a miracle. In the War of 1812, when the British were burning down D.C. and a freak hurricane hit D.C. and tornadoes wiped out the British Army. You know, in Midway, when we should have lost in Midway and we won, when the Japanese should have invaded Pearl Harbor after they destroyed our most of our Navy, but they left because the carriers just happened to be out at sea. You know, over and over again, you see the hand of providence step in at a key inflection point. I believe in 2016, this country was ready to go off the cliff with Hillary Clinton, Thelma and Louise style, and I think that God stepped in and he picked Donald Trump to come in and be his messenger and the man to stand into the gap and turn this country around. And people say, wait a minute, why would God pick a guy like, you know, Donald Trump? Well, look at the Bible. God always picks guys like Donald Trump. Look at Samson. Look at David. Look at Abraham. Look at Saul, who became Paul and wrote most of the New Testament. God always picks these types of people to save the world to save the countries. Why? Because then when it happens, we know it was God's hand and not just the talent of this person that did it. So I see the hand of providence behind Donald Trump, and I see the Democrats booing God at their conventions was a terrible idea, and I see that if we work with God in the 2020, that we can really take this country to the next level, as you just said.
Well, it's summed up in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves, seek my face and pray, I will heal their land. And you're right, Bill. He did pick, in many of our views, Donald Trump to help heal this land. And we're being healed now. We're being healed by the hand of God because we've prayed for his divine hand to intervene, and he has. So saying all of that, have you ever heard Democrats talk about what we're talking about now, Bill? I've never heard that. Never. So we know enough that, look, there's a God above, and I've heard this out of the words of President Trump in the White House when I was there. My wife and I were in the White House a few times, and I'll never forget the time where him and his wife, Melania, came to the podium. We're waiting for him to begin his speech, and you know what he said, Bill? Before we begin, we're going to recognize that there is a God above, and I cannot do this job without him, so let's pray before we begin. And I think at that time he asked Pastor Scott or Pastor Jeffries to come up and pray. You want to know about the character of President Trump? That's his character. He knows he's accountable to God Almighty. And to me, I love every minute of having a president who understands that.
Look at the lifestyle that Donald Trump walked away from. Donald Trump, very wealthy guy, very powerful guy, was in demand to do TV shows. Okay, basically all day long, every day, everybody's like, yes, sir, Mr. Trump. What can I do for you, Mr. Trump? Yes, you're the most amazing guy ever, Mr. Trump. And then he becomes president of the United States. All of a sudden, he's got the media down his throat 24/7, all these lies being told about him, having to work 20 hours a day to get this thing done, in a crazy world with all going, half of his own party opposing him. Also, this guy, he did an amazing sacrifice. Why? Because he saw it as, this country needs somebody to step into the gap. This country needs somebody to stand up because we are going down the drain. And this country has given so much to me that I'm willing to make the sacrifice and go out there and do it. I guarantee you, Donald Trump did not become president for the glory of being president. He's not a politician. Well, I'm sure that his family did say, man, are you really sure you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, I'm really sure I want to do this. What do you think?
Well, that's right, Bill. And the interesting thing about him, he owes no one nothing. And he has said he owes the people and he owes God. So here's a guy that was a billionaire, that is a billionaire, but he didn't have to go out and seek favors from people to get elected. And that's the very point of, I think, as you say, why the good Lord chose him and anointed him for this job, is that he owes nothing to no one. Look, politics as I do. People like to buy and pay for access. They like to use their money for means like that, but he didn't need it. He didn't want it. He self-funded most of his campaign in the beginning. But the fact of the matter is, we have someone who we wanted for a lifetime, someone whose heart, soul, and spirit is in it for the American people and not for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's remarkable. And we're very blessed to have a bold leader like Donald Trump. Some people complain about his that he's tough on Twitter, that he has a brusque style sometimes. But I'm telling you what, here's the great thing. And this is the problem that Romney had. Romney did not get the blue collar voters. Why? Because he seemed so polished. He seemed so focus grouped, so consulted. When Donald Trump has said some of these things that make some of the even people on his side say, oh, wow, I really can't believe he said that. The benefit is that those people in flyover America, middle America, they look at that and they say, well, that was a little tough on his part, but I guarantee you no consultant told him to say that. No focus group told him to say that. So he gets tremendous honesty points from the base that people say, you know what, when he says this, I believe he's going to do it, because he says stuff that no consultant would have ever told him to say. What do you think?
Well, I was raised in Brooklyn, and I have to tell you, he's a New Yorker, I'm a New Yorker. I've gotten around in middle America, and you know what people are saying? Hey, look, maybe you don't like what the guy's saying or how he's saying it, but he's speaking my language. He's saying what I want to say.
He's our voice. He's saying out loud what we've been thinking. He's saying out loud what we've been screaming at the TV set for 30 years when we'd see Republicans on these liberal talk shows and the Democrats are throwing these bombs at the conservatives and the Republicans are just sitting there like,
And you know what, Bill? He's verbalizing what the rest of the politicians want to verbalize, but don't have the courage. They don't have the guts to tell it like it is. So all this stuff about his Twitter, etc., it's nonsense. You know what? It's a successful ingredient. It's worked. It got him elected, and it's going to get him reelected.
Yeah, the Twitter removes the media filter from what Donald Trump says. It allows him to communicate directly with us. And I guarantee you, I don't think this is why I think Google is trying to use these algorithms to shut us down. And Google, after this new release by Project Veritas, Google may find themselves in some legal jeopardy here because they had senior executives saying, yeah, we're going to use our algorithms to make sure that Donald Trump does not get reelected in 2020, that we can block that. I tell you, this is, thank God. Here's one thing I always say, Steve. Thank God for the hubris of the Democrats. The Democrats remind me of the burglars who pulled off the perfect bank heist and they got away with it, but then they got caught because they went to the local bar and bragged about how much money they got away with. And the Democrat, go ahead. I can tell you what the response was.
You're right. I've been in law enforcement my whole life, and that's how many times we would apprehend criminals. They'd go brag about the criminal acts that they committed. In this case, Google has a problem with antitrust laws now, and they're raising eyebrows, and the American people are not going to put up with that. They're certainly, and think about this, in our lifetime, Bell Atlantic, Bell Telephone, remember that? The greatest system going, but because of antitrust laws, they didn't commit any illegal acts or do half of what, or said half of what Google said. The United States Congress broke them up. Now, Google has to look at what happened back to Bell Atlantic when there was no bragging. Now they're bragging. Well, Google, I think they committed suicide. They committed corporate suicide, and they will pay the consequence.
Yeah, well, we know that we got Durham, who is a real attack dog on white collar crime and that sort of thing, in there investigating the Democrats on the whole FISA abuse thing and the Hillary servers and all that stuff. So I don't think that Google wants to be making a lot of noise like this and getting his attention focused on them, because he's a very tough guy. And he's somebody who always gets his man, so to speak, and is very detail oriented. So yeah, they do not want Durham turning his ire upon them as well. Okay, let's see what else we got in the news here. Boy, that goes by so quick. By the way, Steve, how can people reach you on Twitter?
Well, my Twitter handle is at LT Stephen L. Rogers. That's at LT Stephen L. Rogers. We'd like people to follow us, Bill, and we put a lot out on Twitter and on other social media platforms. And we'll get them information about our website, our America Winning Coalition that we've put together to help the president's agenda and his campaign. So that's at LT Stephen L. Rogers. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you tell the audience what does the advisory board do for the president? What is the whole role of this? And how did you become involved in it yourself?
Well, what we do is actually smacks in the face this idea from the left that there's chaos right in the White House or the campaign. Look, at 4 o'clock today, for example, I will be on a conference call of the president's 2020 campaign advisory board. And what we do is we discuss a lot of the recent news events, and we talk about how we're going to address the mainstream media with regard to making sure that they get facts. We push back the fake news with facts. We're not told what to say, but we're given facts. And we're asked to go out and to just share with the American people what the facts are and what the president's policies are. So that's number one. So that's why you'll see maybe a dozen of us go on Fox or CNN or whatever we go on, and even on programs like yours, and share facts with people. So there's no hidden agenda. There's no, hey, you guys should say this or say that. Right. All the president has asked for, tell the truth. Let the people know what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So we get these briefings. Secondly, through organizations like our American Winning Coalition and others, we partner with them and we get facts to them. And through their social media platforms, we ask them to spread the news. Let people know, let them know what really happened with the Iranian crisis. Let them know what's happening in Venezuela. Let them know the president's policies regarding Russia, etc. So the advisory board goes out and spreads what? The truth. We push back against the fake news media. And it's working very well. And additionally, some of us go out on the road. I've been to Florida a few times. We're going back. And we meet with GOP organizations and organizations that have been committed to working with the president's campaign. We share maybe 200, 250 people in a room. We actually address them with what? With facts. And get them fired up, Bill. Get that base fired up and get them excited and let them know how serious this 2020 election is and what we need to do in order to reelect the president.
Absolutely. I've always said this show is kind of like the suicide prevention squad, because, the media's only hope is to discourage everybody out there and get everybody to stay home. They're discouraged, they're overwhelmed by all this stuff. they come on the show and we understand, we don't just report the news, we report what the news means to them in the bigger picture, bigger strategic picture. And we keep everybody, on the Trump training from being discouraged. My job on this show is not to turn a bunch of liberals into a bunch of conservatives, but to turn a bunch of conservatives into better conservatives, to turn conservatives into conservatives that show up. Maybe turn some moderate Democrats, to come over and vote for Trump because he's just got a guy that gets things done. There are a lot of Democrats that were just raised Democrat. They've always voted Democrat. They might be conservative fiscally, but they're socially moderate to liberal, and they've been against Republicans because they saw Republicans as socially conservative. But I tell you what, Donald Trump is bringing those folks across. I think in this election, we might have a huge influx of Reagan Democrats who are voting for Donald Trump on the economic results, on the economic message, not only because Donald Trump's message is so strong, his results are so strong, but these crazy socialists have just left these guys. It wasn't long ago before since Barack Obama's people were denying the fact that he was a socialist, and now these guys are all out there waving the socialist flag like it's the greatest thing ever. What do you think?
Well, Bill, the other group of people, by the thousands that, in my mind, no doubt, that you're influencing through this broadcast, are the undecided, or the unaffiliated. Right. They don't know what to do. They're hearing bad news on this station, good news on that station. Now they come to a broadcast, and it gets to the point of social media like yours, and they're saying, wait a minute, we didn't know this. So part of the big picture here is to educate people, and that's what you're doing. You're educating people, and that's why people tune in to broadcasts like yours and other social media platforms, because they want facts. I got to tell you, even myself, I'm tired. I tune in to the Andy Griffith Show late at night now, or the Honeymooners, because I'm tired like the rest of the American people. So the fact of the matter is that when people like you come on, when hosts like you come on and bring guests on that are willing to educate, boy, I'll tell you what, it turns heads. That's how important this is, how important these social media programs and broadcasts are. Because you know what? You're not about ratings. You're about the truth. You are about giving people facts and educating them. There's a far cry when you've got networks fighting for ratings and networks like yourself who are fighting for a cause, which is the United States of America.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I tell you what, I've been hearing, through the grapevine, the RNC is doing a great job with volunteerism and spreading networks around the country and the great fundraising. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, the Republican National Committee, I'll tell you, there's been a rebirth, I believe, in their leadership. They are raising millions and millions of dollars for the president, his campaign, and even importantly is the congressional races that are coming up. They're raising millions and millions of dollars for people running for Congress because, as you said earlier, we need a Congress and a Senate that's going to support the president. In addition to that, this is another thing that involves you, Bill. The fact of the matter is that we're being deployed not only to appear on the major TV networks, we're being deployed to appear on programs like yours. And we've never seen that before. We've never seen that before. So here I get a call and I'll say, Steve, would you like to be a guest on Bill Mitchell Show? Would you like to be a guest here and there? We'd like you to go on because the Republican National Committee realizes that Bill Mitchell and others like you, Bill, the message that you're sending out is resonating with the American people, and it is factual. And that's why there's been a game changer that the Democrat socialists are now having a hard time to deal with, because there's not much going on with regard to social media in the Democrat socialist world. But in our orbit, the president's orbit, and the RNC's orbit, people like you, we're getting to and saying, hey, Bill, we want to come on and we want to talk about the agenda. And thank God there are people like you who are opening your arms and embracing what is truthful and what is factual.
Yeah, well, we're on a mission here. We're on the same mission as you guys, to make America great again. And I tell you what, I can see why Twitter and Facebook and all these guys want to throttle our message, because at least on Twitter, which is my main space, conservatives completely dominate that space. I mean, I know 20 or 30 people personally who have over 100,000 Twitter followers that are Trump supporters. And I can rarely find a Democrat who has over 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
They're mostly bots. Yeah, go ahead.
I jumped from 500 to 48,000 in a year. I mean, so that's
amazing.
It is, and it's all about truth, and it's all about facts, and it's all about, partnering up with Trump supporters. And I find interesting, more and more people who are Democrat conservatives and unaffiliated are pushing that follow button. because they're tired of the left's nonsense. And they realize, too, they don't want their children to live in a socialist country. They want their children to be living in a capitalist country where there's free markets, where we have a First and Second Amendment. And you know what? Don't be surprised, Bill. And by the way, I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I've asked you off camera, can you send me your link? Well, we're going to send a link of this broadcast to colleges, to Republican students who have these young Republican organizations in colleges, so that they could put it up on their college organization.
Oh, that's great. That's
So
great. What I'll do is I'll send you the raw video, and you can chop it up however you want and use it in your various promos and that sort of thing. So you'll have not just the thing that's online, but your own copy to do with as you please. Complete licensing,
Well, that's how we work together. We have nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide. Yeah, nothing to hide. So, fantastic. Yeah. What else is going on out there, folks? Let's see, on the censorship thing we already talked about, this Project Veritas. Barnley, definitely go out there and watch their video. It's amazing. They got this woman. I don't know how these executives keep getting busted in these stings. With the hidden camera stuff. You would think they'd have it figured out by now, but they don't. And they had this woman, Genai, Gennai, who's a top person. And basically, she's coming out and saying that, they want to, stop Trump in 2020. They do not want a repeat of 2016. And they're going to do what they can with their algorithms to do that. And it's pretty frightening stuff. Let's see what else we've got.
Well, Bill, I'm reminded of the biblical scripture that out of the mouth of those who thought they were wise, they became fools. And that's what happened to these people. And it goes to the point that they think they're bold enough, they're arrogant enough, that it's all arrogance and boldness, that they could just say what they want. They're entitled to say what they want, do what they want. Well, you know what? They get caught. Every bad person, I've said this in law enforcement, every bad person eventually gets caught. This is bad stuff. I don't use that word often. I don't use the word evil much, but I got to tell you, the Democrat Socialist Party is a bad party. It's an evil party. It's a bad bet for America. And these people who support that party and say things like these people did, they get caught, they get embarrassed, but more so than anything else, the light is shed on their darkness, and that is what is very important for us to see.
Absolutely. Well, I've got about 18 months to give it 110,000% effort and put it out there. This show is dedicated to YourVoiceAmerica.tv. You can follow us on our website, on YouTube. We're on Periscope the next day. The show does between 50 and 100,000 plays a day. And that's even with us throttled. We were doing 300,000 plays a day before Periscope said, whoa, wait a minute. This is too big. We got to cut their numbers down. So even with that, we're doing great numbers on this show. And just tell your friends, spread the word. This show is going to become very important as 2020 approaches. We're going to be working with a website called CampaignCorner.com that is vetting all of the MAGA candidates to make sure they're really MAGA and give you ways to get in touch with them, donate to their campaigns, volunteer, and so on and so forth. We're going to be working with the Trump campaign and interviewing their surrogates like Steve Rogers. And I tell you what, it's going to be all hands on deck. We're all about unifying. We don't want to fight amongst ourselves. You know what? It's like Baptists and Presbyterians, We're all Christians. Let's not fight amongst ourselves. Let's all work together for the greater good, for the greater cause. Let's let the Democrats be divided. And trust me, they are going to be divided. I think this first Democrat debate, everybody's going to try to play nice, but as first person throws a stone, it's all hell's going to break loose. So it's going to be 18 Democrats on the first two debate nights. I think it's going to be go along to get along, but it's going to get rough after that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So, I tell you what, we're just about out of time, Steve. I'll give you the final word. Tell us what you think. What are our marching orders for the next month as far as the Trump campaign?
Well, you just said it. As a former Navy commander, what you just said resonated with me. All hands on deck. And that means we need the people of this country to pray to God Almighty for our country, for our president, but we must put our faith to work. Let's work hard. And I'll repeat it, what you just said, all hands on deck, on to victory.
Fantastic. Folks, this has been Bill Mitchell with Your Voice, America.tv. We're here Monday. Actually, we're going to start doing Sunday through Thursday. We were Monday through Friday, going Sunday through Thursday in the future. And definitely support our sponsors. We have a website called rdelephant.com, which is a new social media site. It was started by a Navy guy, and they're donating money to the Wounded Warrior Project. If you become a member there, it's like social media, Facebook, Twitter, all together, rdelephant.com. So definitely check them out. Okay, Steve, thanks, man.
My pleasure, and God bless you, Bill. Thank you.
Great having you on. Okay, we'll see you later. Take care.
I am your voice.
Your voice.